Welcome, everyone, to the Skol Purple Podcast. My name is Steggy. As always, we are here talking Vikings football, and I have a very special guest with me. We have Alex from Locked On Cardinals. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, with the Cardinals coming into town this weekend, I wanted to talk to you and see what your thoughts were on, maybe some of the things we should be worried about with the Cardinals coming into town this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Both teams kind of are they what their records say they are, and the Cardinals have had some pretty big ups and downs this year. The defense has played pretty well. The offense has kind of sputtered at times and showed, flashes of what we expected them to be when the season started after trading for Hollywood Brown. And they're kind of this is kind of a rip the Band-Aid off game. 5-1 on the road, early time slot where the Cardinals can move to 4-4 and be up near the top of the NFC West, and beat a team that they beat last year. Luckily, thank you, Greg Joseph. I sent him flowers, missing the 37-yard field goal or whatever it was. I think it was right around there. And, there's so many question marks surrounding this team still. And I think there's going to be a lot more clarity after Sunday. So I'm excited for that come, win or lose.
Sure. Yeah, and I'd love to hear your take on how you feel about the mix-up, certainly at the wide receiver position, because obviously, as you mentioned already, you've got Hollywood that goes down, and then you bring in Robbie Anderson from Carolina, for basically next to nothing. I think it was, a sixth and a seventh or something like that. And then obviously you get DeAndre Hopkins back, which is a huge, plus back into that wide receiver category. Do you feel like, and I have an opinion here, do you feel as if the Robbie Anderson trade was because of the Hollywood injury, or do you feel like they just wanted another body and another good receiver in that room?
Yes.
So you think it
Both.
was directly because of the
Well,
Hollywood injury?
yeah, I think it was just timing. It's like, oh, Robbie Anderson's pissed off at all the coaches at Carolina. Probably can get him for not a whole lot. The thing is that, like, in a macro scale, and it's weird to look at it like this, but I think it's a net positive getting DeAndre Hopkins back and getting Robbie Anderson on the field and losing Hollywood Brown instead of having it the way it was through the first 6 weeks, even though Hollywood Brown has been a bona fide wide receiver one for the Cardinals. So the interesting part about this, to answer your question, I think it was both. Like, it forced Steve Keim's hand, even though they have glaring needs elsewhere. He's like, you know what? Need another wide receiver, so why the hell not? It was kind of like a snap judgment that worked, and we'll see. I mean, for those that have played fantasy football over the last 5 or 7 years, Robbie Anderson has shown flashes of wide receiver 2 potential, like in chunks, in bunches, with bad quarterback play. So we'll see once he gets another. He has another 10 days in the system with Cliff Kingsbury. See if he and Kyler Murray can build a little bit of rapport. And any production that's not DeAndre Hopkins is a benefit for the Cardinals because it'll keep the opposing defenses honest.
Yeah. Yeah, my opinion was I felt as if it wasn't a direct result. I think that was a bit of a, the media has to spin it here and there because obviously it was very
Mm-hmm.
topical with Hollywood going down and then obviously the trade happening and just in close proximity time-wise. And not saying they didn't have any correlation. It just I felt like you're getting DeAndre Hopkins back. I don't think there was any fear like, oh, well, now we're not going to have a number one. Clearly, I think anybody would take DeAndre Hopkins over
Sure.
Robbie Anderson, even with the flashes. So my next question would be, as a Cardinals fan and as someone who intimately knows that team, is there anything that scares you about coming to Minnesota? And I will give you a precursor here. As a Vikings fan, I am very fearful of this weekend. I am very scared of your team, and I certainly can elaborate, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Everything scares me. What scares me the most is the pass rush of the Cardinals, not necessarily the blitz packages, but the pass rush of the Cardinals not getting to Kirk Cousins. Because what I call tea parties, if Kirk Cousins has tea parties in the backfield, in the pocket all game, he's going to carve them up like he did in the first half last year. And that's something that the Cardinals can't afford because the Cardinals offense hasn't been potent. They haven't been able to come back, aside from the game in Vegas where Kyler Murray put a cape on and put the team on his shoulders and tied the game, and they ended up winning it in a walk-off fashion in overtime. Kirk Cousins, any real QB1 in the NFL, when given time, will eat you apart. And say what you want about Kirk Cousins, I tend to err on the side of trusting Kirk Cousins' skill set more than many. But I mean, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen scares me more than Justin Jefferson because Adam Thielen can score 2 touchdowns on you any game. It's one of the best red zone threats in the NFL still. And Dalvin Cook, but it's really like the one thing that scares me the most, the one thing that it's not scares, it's I'm going to be paying attention to most is if the Cardinals can get home against Kirk Cousins and get in rattle his kitchen. Because if not, it's going to be a long day for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. I think you're spot on. I mean, all these guys, and I've said this on this podcast before, no matter the position, whether it be quarterback or any other position on the field. I mean, every single player in the NFL has been a superstar at some point in their career. That's why they're in the NFL. So everybody has talent, and
Right.
I'm in the camp of I am not a Kirk hater. I'm not a Kirk lover. I just think that Kirk is in the Matt Ryan tier of quarterbacks for me. Maybe not Matt Ryan now, especially with
No,
this week's
maybe
development.
not.
But I put him in that tier of quarterbacks that need some help. They're going to need a team around them. This isn't Aaron Rodgers. This isn't Tom Brady. It's not Patrick Mahomes. I think that he's definitely has the talent to win and put up points. But at some point, consistency starts to wear, and it's just unfortunate that it seems to come in primetime spots and whatnot. So, what scares me the most about the Cardinals is, I mean, there's a lot of things. Our secondary is extremely suspect. I mean,
Mhm.
it's bottom third of the league for sure, and so certainly having DeAndre Hopkins back scares the heck out of me. I don't know who is going to go up against DeAndre. I think that they will probably just let whatever side of the field, whatever corners there, cover him. I don't think anyone's going to
Right.
shadow him, nor they should, because I would be very fearful if Patrick Peterson were to shadow DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think that'd be a good situation. The other side's Cam Dantzler, who's young, has had moments, but he's certainly looked suspect as well. So, not exactly a confidence booster there on the outside. And
Mhm.
really, this year we've struggled against any quarterback that's been able to move around. If you look at the way we performed against Jalen Hurts, if you looked at the way we performed against Skylar Thompson, if you want to throw that in there from the Miami game, and even Teddy Bridgewater, who's got a little bit of mobility, certainly a little less since his big knee injury here in Minnesota.
Right.
But anyone who can really move around, and I actually forgot, even look at Justin Fields. At Justin Fields, if he had anyone to throw to, we probably would have lost that game. So it worries me a lot. I think this is a game where I would love to see the Vikings win because having the Packers on this slide that they're on, it's a great opportunity for this ball club to really separate themselves in the division. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't. I think this is going to be a tough game for the Vikings. I get that we're fresh coming out of the bye, but I know everybody can send me the hate mail. I think this is going to be an L for the Vikings.
It's going to change trajectories in some capacity for both teams. This is really a true litmus test game for both teams. I mean, it is. And if the Cardinals can get a win, like I'll take it. I'll take it because this is against a 5-1 team. It's not necessarily a signature win because of how the Vikings have won their 5 games, but any win right now for the Cardinals in the muck box that is the NFC West, like it almost counts as 2 wins. I mean, it's a big deal, and it'll be a big, momentum shift for the Cardinals after starting the way that they did this year, and be able to move to 4-4 through 8 weeks would be a huge, huge, huge thing for them. Again, with how bad they started this year.
Yeah, yeah. The other aspects of this game that I'm a little worried about, some of the nuances if we get into the personnel that we're going to see on Sunday. I'm a little worried about Ertz. I think everybody's going to look at D Hop as having this big game. I think Ertz has a shot to have a big game against the Vikings. The Vikings have not been good against tight ends so far this year at all.
Mhm.
And so I would not be surprised to see Arizona attack the Vikings. Our linebackers, if you're familiar with them, Eric Hendricks, who's arguably, outside of Harrison Smith, the captain of our defense, his bread and butter has always been his coverage skills. And if you believe in the PFF gods, he has regressed quite badly this year. So his coverage skills have shown up on tape too, as far as his lack thereof. And I think that's the big driver towards the weakness against tight ends and us playing a lot more zone versus man, which is what we were playing with Mike Zimmer. So I would not be surprised to see Ertz for all you daily fantasy football players. Uh, Maybe have a big game this weekend. And then looking at Arizona's defense, it's kind of a similar story. So I don't know if that's shown up on your end, but you guys are currently, I think, maybe the second or third worst with yardage given up to tight ends each week. It's 77 yards on average given up to the tight end position. And just looking at touchdown allocation here, yeah, you guys are also towards the bottom at almost one tight end touchdown per game. So I don't know if that's shown up on tape. What are your thoughts on maybe the driver behind that?
It's always been an issue. It's just like I mean, ever since 2017, even before this coaching regime took over, it's just one of those things. It's like the Raiders are always at the top penalty wise. Doesn't matter who the coaches, doesn't matter who the players are. The Raiders are just always at the top with penalties against. Travis Kelsey is really good. Darren Waller is really good. Tyler Higbee is really good. They've played some good tight ends, and then you have I don't know if Will Disley scored a touch. I can't remember. He had an okay day against Seattle with Seattle. Like they've played some good tight ends, and yes, it's been a short end of the straw for the Cardinals. But like how the Cardinals defense is built is to bend, not break. And aside from giving up a 40 burger to Kansas City in Week 1, which nobody played in the preseason, and it's Patrick Mahomes on a revenge tour this year, so that was kind of a perfect storm. And then on Thursday, they gave up a 34 points, I think, 33 points, 34 points to New Orleans in a garbage time fashion in the second half. The defense has given up 23 points or less in weeks 2 through 6. They're built to bend. They're not built to be the strength. They're built to set the table for the Cardinals offense to eat. And the Cardinals offense has been fasting for a lot of this season. So I wouldn't put all the impact on the defense negatively, even though the numbers would kind of say otherwise. They've played a lot better than the numbers say.
Sure. Yeah, and I think a lot of Vikings fans and myself included would say similar things about this Vikings team. I mean, I feel like while the defense has been certainly suspect at times,
Mm-hmm.
we can credit the defense last week for our win, basically, or I should say before the bye week against Miami. And I think the offense is just going to have to be able to outscore the other team. I mean, I know that's really cliche to say, but this is not a Mike Zimmer defense like we saw in, let's say, 2017 through
Right.
2019. And I think as Vikings fans, we got very accustomed to seeing that. So it was a little bit of a shock to the system, ending up in this bend but not break type of system that we're seeing now. We switched from a 4-3 to a 3-4. It's a lot of zone. We barely ever blitz, which certainly we didn't see quite as much of that soft, type of defense that, or excuse me, with Mike Zimmer. Mike Zimmer tended to blitz quite often. So I think a lot of Vikings fans have I would say in some ways warranted the. There's criticism that's been warranted, but in other times I think it's just recency with what we expect from our team, where that defense was such a backbone of the team, and now really we're looking at a more offensive minded system with Kevin O'Connell and company. So I do think we are again in that bend but not break type of system as well here in Minnesota. I would just like to see a little less breaking, and I would like to see the offense really click because as you mentioned, I mean, you ran through the laundry list of talent we have on the offensive side of the ball. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's very good and certainly good enough to score a lot of points. Um, so we'll see. I would like to see this weekend against your Cardinals. What I would really like to see is the offense come out fast, and I would really like to see them get their tight end Irv Smith involved a bit more because I think that's going to help get some of those more underneath routes and passes in. Because what I've seen so far from our Vikings is we've tended to rely a bit too much on the chunk plays with Jefferson, and I think that's why a lot of people have felt like Thielen has gotten lost, and that's because
Mm-hmm.
Thielen, as he gets older, we don't really rely on his speed anymore. It's really the route running and craftiness, and that's hard to show up when you're trying to hit, 20, 25-yard passes.
Right.
So I would like to see them get a little more creative, but we'll see. It should be a fun weekend. What are you kind of looking to see this weekend from your Cardinals?
The Cardinals will win if the over under I think is 49 points. The Cardinals will win if this is a high scoring game. The Cardinals will lose if it's less than 49 points. I think it's pretty like Minnesota can win ugly, and the Cardinals haven't shown that they can win ugly. They can win when offense is flowing. DeAndre Hopkins back, Kyler Murray. You know, if it's a shootout, I think the Cardinals will win. If it's not, I don't think the Cardinals will.
Well, I'm going to leave you with one final question, and then we can wrap it up here. Uh, Kyler Murray, is he an Arizona Cardinal 3 years from now?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. This is I'm tough on Cliff. I think others aren't as tough as they should be. I think Kyler Murray's winning in spite of Cliff Kingsbury, not because of him. I don't think Cliff Kingsbury should be the head coach. I think he should be fired immediately. But him, they've won more games every year than the year before since he's been coach. But if the Cardinals go on some sort of losing streak and they end up with 6 wins, I don't know how you can bring him back, even though the contract extension doesn't kick in until 2023. I don't think it's too hard. Like, I don't think this is more about Cliff than Kyler. And I think if it comes down to one or the other and they choose Cliff Kingsbury, I don't know what rational sense that would make. So because of that, even though there's some irrationalities that go on around this organization, I will say Kyler Murray will be an Arizona Cardinal in perpetuity.
So what you're saying is that I need to reach out to Locked On Vikings if they choose Kingsbury over Murray, so we can save.
Oh, Luke, I just got off with Luke. Okay, Luke asked me that question. That bastard. He asked me that. We went through 27 minutes, and he's like, "So is Cliff Kingsbury going to get fired?" I'm like, "Luke, we had a very nice conversation for 27 minutes, and you're going to slip this in at the end." Yeah, he knows how to rile me up because just watch the games. It's the same mistakes. It's leadership or lack thereof. Kyler Murray's learning on his own, and he shouldn't be. He should be further along than he is, and that's on coaching. It's on him too. But look at what's happening with Brian Dable. Look at what's happening with Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. It's like there's an adult in the room. It's not hard to see when quarterbacks need extra coaching and good coaching, and Kyler Murray needs it, and he doesn't have it.
Yeah. Well, as an outsider, I can tell you that I'm a big Murray fan. I think he's got an immense amount of talent. I was excited to see him come into the league the way he did. I think he's a spark plug, and he's fun to watch. I just don't want to see him win against my team, but he's certainly fun to watch. But all right, well, I'll punt it over to you before we close out. Where can people find you and consume all of your media?
You can follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. And then Locked On Cardinals, free and available Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Alex. I certainly appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. And again, Skol.